Dussies or hyraxes are small, furry, and stout mammals that can be found across Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. To date, no known paleoichnological trace fossils of dussies have been recorded. That is, fossils such as footprints, dust bath hollows, or any other activity that may leave a trace. However, a recent study by Dr. Charles Helm and his colleagues has possibly identified not one, but two of the first fossilized dussie traces. In addition, one of these trace fossil types is the very first of its kind, and if you know dussies, you will know it's rather fitting for such a weird and funny creature to leave behind an equally weird and funny trace fossil. So, what are dussies? Dussies, also known as hyraxes, are small, herbivorous mammals with a stout build and no visible tails. The name, dussie, in Afrikaans comes from the Dutch word dassier, meaning little badger. However, they are not even vaguely related to badgers. Instead, their closest living relatives are elephants, manatees, and dugongs. Currently, there are 5 separate species of dussies that are confined to Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. They are typically found sunning themselves on the rocks and are rather skittish when approached. The little creatures are incredibly skilled climbers, helped in part by their rubbery feet, which are kept moist by secretions from glands. Additionally, a hollow in the middle of the sole forms a muscle attachment that acts a bit like a suction cup, allowing the agile animals to climb upon even the most rugged and steep surfaces. Another key characteristic of dussies is that they are able to concentrate urea and electrolytes and excrete large amounts of calcium carbonate. Because they use the same communal bathroom spots over many generations, their urine and droppings create distinctive deposits called rock hyrax middens. Now, despite these little creatures being incredibly abundant to the point where in some regions they are considered a pest, until now there has been no known fossilized tracks of these dussies. However, 2 such tracks were found in 2024. I will tell you about both, but it is the second one that is the most intriguing and unique. In fact, it is so unique that no other fossil like it has been found for any other species in the entire world. Along the southern Cape coast of South Africa are exposed Veenhuiskrans formations. These deposits date back to the Pleistocene and were formed from ancient sand dunes that have since cemented into solid rocks called alienites. The first of the dussie fossils was identified by reserve manager Mike Fabricus in 2024 in an area known as Die Plaat within the Walker Bay Nature Reserve close to Hermanus. The fossil consists of 4 tracks, with each depression around 5 to 7 centimeters long and 2.5 to 3 centimeters wide. Based on the measurements, it is likely this track was the result of a bounding gait of a dussie. A bounding gait is like a mix between a run and a jump. This type of locomotion is common in dussies and is typically what they will do if you approach them. Based on optically stimulated luminescence, also known as OSL dating, the dussie who made these likely lived around 76 plus minus 5,000 years ago. Now, while these fossils are cute and they represent the very first known fossilized dussie trackways, they are, relatively speaking, the less spectacular of the 2 finds. The second fossil track was discovered east of Still Bay in Bosfontein Private Nature Reserve. Here, an alienite block had become dislodged from the coastal cliff and come to a rest on an angle on the beach near the high tide mark. Based on OSL dating, the track mark is likely around 26 plus minus 9,000 years old. On the fossil's surface were parallel lines creating a groove that was around 95 centimeters long and around 13 centimeters wide. Though part of the block had broken off, it is likely these striations were once much longer. The parallel lines created a raised outer margin interpreted as a placement rim, aka the evidence that something was dragged through the loose sand thousands of years ago. Now the question became, what had been dragged through the sand? A number of theories were proposed. The first was wave or wind action dragging twigs. However, the surface was incompatible with wave action, and the isolated nature of the track did not match known prints left behind by strong wind action. Perhaps then a gemsbok's horns had scraped across the surface. However, the striations did not match this behavior, and one long raised internal structure seen in the fossil would not have existed if this was the case. Perhaps a predator, a leopard, or even a human drag their prey across the sand. While this could have left similar marks, they should also have left behind footprints. Another possibility was that perhaps an elephant had dragged its trunk across the sand. However, certain aspects simply did not fit, and an animal as large as an elephant would have left behind other well-preserved tracks, unless somehow the elephant's feet had been positioned below the current bottom edge of the rock, where it would not have left any tracks. But this was unnecessarily speculative, and still did not explain the raised feature observed in the fossil. There was only one more possible explanation. You see, the track mark most resembled a buttock drag mark of a dussie. If you own a dog, you may know dogs have a habit of sometimes dragging their behinds across the ground. For dussies, they exhibit a similar behavior, though the cause is less clear. The overall shape, the rims, the striations, and the raised groove all fit perfectly with a dussie that dragged its butt along the sands thousands of years ago. Additionally, a small oval structure found within the fossil trackway may also be explained. You see, the researchers tentatively suggest this little pellet was a fumate. What is a fumate? Well, it's Hyrax dung. Not only is this buttock drag fossil the very first of its kind, with no other known buttock drag fossil having been discovered anywhere in the world, it may also be one of the weirdest. The fossil shows us that dussies, despite being small, common parts of their environment, like many other small creatures, are often overlooked in the geological record, and yet they likely left just as many fossils as their larger counterparts. There are likely many more Hyrax fossils out there just waiting to be discovered. Who knows? While they may no longer be the very first Hyrax fossils, perhaps they will be the first dust bath or digging fossil. If this video was your cup of tea, please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell to never miss a video.